Today I'm bringing you an interview with Jackie Johansen of finallywriting.com. We got to sit down and chat about branding through copy and what she does helping creative entrepreneurs and business owners write the copy for their websites. It's really inspiring to hear her talk about the way that you should approach your copy for your website, in that you need to have it reflect your own voice, you need to match it to what your audience needs. No worries, we also discussed the fact that you may not know who your audience is starting out. Maybe you are starting one kind of blog and eventually that's going to change, and that's totally okay. You will figure out who your audience is, what your niche is, as you work. As you get feedback from people, you're going to see what the most popular posts are and what resonates with people. She recently posted on her blog about a rebrand that she went through, not only with her copy, but also with her design, and I thought it was really interesting the way that she approached it. She didn't rebrand until she knew the content that she wanted to change to. She switched from being more generic and esoteric about what she was saying to being really focused on helping creative business owners write content for their blogs, including blog posts, about pages, and such. She has some great tips for sharing your story and just how to get comfortable writing online and how you can approach writing with a copywriter. So I hope you enjoy this interview. I certainly learned a lot from it, and you should go check Jackie out at finallywriting.com. Well, I don't want to keep you too long, so if you want, we can go ahead and get started.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so why don't you just go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us, what you do and where everybody can, see your work.
Yeah, so my name is Jackie Johansen. I write and blog over at finallywriting.com, and I help creative entrepreneurs really beef up their copy and manage all of the writing they have to do for their businesses. So I really tackle the writing piece when it comes to being a service to creative entrepreneurs.
Okay,
and I can also handle different social medias as well, but my main hub is finallywriting.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So how did you get started running your own business?
Yeah, so it was an interesting kind of process. I started off kind of going back. I was in a job I wasn't happy with at all. I was just really uncomfortable in my own skin. I kind of fell into it right after grad school. It just kind of landed based on my degree. And I was just getting burnt out. And I didn't even really know you could have an online business. This was a couple years ago. It kind of fell into my lap. So, through kind of just searching around online and being led to different blogs, I found, kind of the world of online entrepreneurship. Somehow I got linked to like Marie Forleo way back in the day and had no clue kind of really who she was or what she did. And I started watching the videos. I'm like, what? This is a real thing that people can be putting themselves out there and doing something they love. So I just kept absorbing more information and started blogging. I really just started off as a blogger, not really sure what I wanted to do in terms of making it a business, and just kept writing and writing and writing. And the more I did it and the more I kept connecting with people online, the more I realized this is what I want to be doing. And I can be of service in this way by, helping other entrepreneurs with their writing and what they want to do. So I just kind of fell into it, really. It was almost an accident, and excited that it landed in that way. Yeah.
Yeah. It is always funny when you first learned I can have a business from my computer. I felt that way when I started this. I was like, this is like a real thing. People do this long term.
Exactly. And it's so funny because it's such a mindset shift, because before I didn't realize it was a possibility. And now that I'm in it and I'm connecting with bloggers like you and, different people online, it almost feels like that's like the only world in some ways. Like I'm so exposed to other worlds, other creatives and people actually doing this work that it just feels so natural. And I think that was a big part of my transition as well, is realizing that it's a possibility. There's other people who are doing it successfully, and there's a community out there of amazing people doing really cool work, ready and willing to support each other. And that's why I'm so excited by your project, actually, is how other people can really support one another through this process.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was great. I know when I started out, I was just looking online for, how do I do this? And I came up, everybody's doing webinars and has instructions now. And it's so nice that you can just look something up on somebody's blog and either they have something or they're willing to answer a question for you.
Right, exactly. Yeah, like whenever I have a question, there's always someone out there. And I love Twitter because you can always ask someone a question and reach out and connect. It's so awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is your passion for your business?
Yeah, I am so passionate just about writing in general. I grew up wanting to be a writer my whole life. I remember being a little girl, always writing, dreaming of writing books, writing stories, just writing. I went to college to be I studied rhetoric and I studied writing as an undergraduate, and that's when I really was working towards a career, either being a writer or teaching high school English. So I kind of got a lot of my training doing that. And after college, I started actually tutoring writing and teaching writing at the college level, and then went into graduate school doing psychology. So I kind of fell in love with both the psychological aspect of the writing process and the creative process. And then after that, worked at a newspaper and, kind of got a lot of writing experience under my belt. So it felt really natural for me to start off my blog about helping people write and helping people start on their creative work and really bring those ideas out into the world. I was kind of fascinated by the question of how do we make kind of our inner world and our inner experience and our inner just inspiration about things and bring it to form, that journey of from the inner to the outer. Was something I was kind of in love with. So that was kind of the baby form of my blog, was doing that work and writing about that. And the more I did it, the more I just kind of fell in love with the online space. And I just gobbled up the world that we are living in. I'm obsessed with how connective it is, how it allows for people to do creative work in the world and be of service and share their passions and do it in a way that is connecting with others all over the world. I think the internet has such an amazing thing that levels the playing ground for people to come up and make businesses on their own or do creative work. So where my passion has really gone is not so far off, I see, from where I started out, but really about helping online creative entrepreneurs. And why I love creative entrepreneurs so much is that they want to make the world a better place. They're, talented and artists and want to make things beautiful and create websites for people that are beautiful and, do things that are, really helping. So I'm so passionate about helping them manage the writing that comes along with that. So I really think that online work is all about words. I mean, it's, even though we're creating and doing things, you still have to put yourself out there. You still have to, create blog posts and write your bios and write all the copy for your websites. And I'm just excited to help the people who are out there serving.
Yeah, the words are so important now. I mean, because there are so many people doing, all of these businesses that are, they're pretty similar. And so you really have to figure out how to translate what you do and who you are into words that people can then read. So that is not my strong suit. So I love being able to talk to somebody who really enjoys that part of the online space.
Yeah. And then what you do is not my strong suit. So I think that's why I love working with people like you or, just creative entrepreneurs in general, because it's, I love the work that you do, and I have so much admiration for the people who are more visual and creative in that way, so that's why I get so passionate about helping, that group of, those group of people making that happen in the world, because, I think it's a good match, and I have so much fun and passion, supporting creativepreneurs doing what they're doing.
Okay, and then what is your favorite part of what you do and your least favorite? My
favorite part is connecting with other people. I think there's something so wonderful about the blogging community and the community of just bouncing ideas off of each other and the support that we give one another. That's been a real plus. Just the friends I've made online has been fantastic. And then when it comes to my business, it's actually really, when you nail a piece of writing or, you know, help someone see something they weren't seeing for themselves, you know, like, oh, this is actually what I was trying to say. Like those aha moments are my favorites. When people really kind of nail down what their message is and realize what it is that they're actually getting out and the work they're trying to put out into the world. And then when we were able to translate that into words, makes me really excited. When you just kind of nail and it clicks in that right way. I love that part. Yeah. And you asked what my least favorite, is that right?
Yeah.
Did I miss? Okay. You know, I think my least favorite, it's a good question. I'm kind of in love with the business right now, and I'm kind of in love with that piece. My least favorite kind of, and I bet some of your readers and watchers and listeners can kind of relate, is I'm still juggling, you know, this with a 9-to-5 job. And I'm still in that in-between place right now. And I think that's my least favorite part, is kind of feeling like multi-personality in some ways, like going to work and really wishing that I was at home working on my creative work. And, you know, kind of navigating that in between, that's a little uncomfortable right now. So that's just kind of my least favorite of where I'm at in my process. And I'm always trying to get better at just consistency, especially with like social media, because I'm such an introvert, you know, so I'm trying to get better at like scheduling things out and making it so I can really be social in a way that is sustainable for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got actually a lot of people, you know, scheduled for these interviews and that are watching and that I've heard from who are, you know, still doing their 9-to-5 and trying to start out on their own. And so I think it's a really interesting position that everybody's in right now. Because I left my 9-to-5 and I started my business. I sort of fell into it because I couldn't find another job. And then I fell in love with doing everything sort of on my own. So I didn't have that time when I was doing both. So it's interesting to talk to all these people that are doing that.
Yeah, totally. Well, that's exciting that you were able to leave yours and do this full time. That's an inspiring thing to that you did.
And luckily my husband has a really good job. So I get to, you know, experiment a little bit. I didn't have to, you know, go out and say, I have to earn a full salary from day one.
That's great to have that space. Yeah. That's cool.
Okay. Now, what do you think the best thing you've done for your business has been so far?
Yeah, the best thing actually was when I made, and it's a simple thing, but it was huge for me when I realized that my blog wasn't a business. Like, it was such like this duh thing, but realizing that my blog itself wasn't a business, but rather a tool that I can support my business with. You know, because I was really treating my blog as its own full-time thing. And I was almost hiding behind it in a little way around putting so much energy there that like the services and the things that could make money kind of hid a little bit, if that made sense. So the best thing that I've really done is reframing for myself, okay, I need to put stuff out there that actually makes money. I need to put stuff myself out there. I need to have the courage to do it. I need to not hide and, you know, really put some more energy into the business aspect of it.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot because when I first started like reading blogs, the people who are making money were doing it through like ads and sponsorships, and that's just not how you can do it anymore.
Exactly. I think you're so right. Like, things have really changed, and, you know, it's about, I think really the heart of online business is really about building community and building relationships and also putting ourselves out there in a way that's, you know, authentic and about giving back. you know, I think the ad thing was so much about just kind of absorbing this passive income, and not that passive income's bad. I mean, I think that we can create projects and our products and create passive income for ourselves, but really, you know, there's so much more potential in putting ourselves out there to be of service and actually connect with people.
Yeah. Okay. And then what was your biggest struggle starting out, you know, when you were turning your blog into a business, and how did you work through that?
Yeah. My biggest struggle for sure was just self-doubt, doubting my idea, wondering if I could even do it. You know, when I remember like my first unsubscribes from my blog, I was, you know, like, oh my God, this is a horrible thing. And like, it would be gut wrenching. And now I kind of love when people unsubscribe. You know, there's been a transition because now I realize like, okay, these aren't my people, you know, they're not resonating, and that's great, you know, because now when I have someone who does subscribe, I'm like, okay, cool. They're going to feel it out and they're going to land. And I kind of have like diehard people on my list who I love, love, love. And I'm glad to let other people go. Like just not, I think for me, it was really hard because my ego and my identity and all of it was so wrapped up in the business and in the writing and in the creative, because it's such a, I think when we create something we're passionate about, it's part of us. It becomes part of us. It came from our insides and our guts and our inspiration. And I think I really struggled with the doubt around that and the fear of being seen, the fear of, you know, failing, all of that. And how I worked through it was really just every day kept doing the work. Like I was, for some reason, I was committed, you know, no matter what, just committed. I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to be consistent. I'm going to see what happens. And the more I wrote and the more I created, it got clearer. You know, I only just recently went through a rebrand of my site, you know, so I think we're always evolving, and as we create and we do the work, that's when the clarity comes. So really that's how I worked through it, was just kept going. I
remember my first couple unsubscribes. I was like, sitting there and I was like, oh my goodness, people don't like what I'm putting out there. And then I thought about it and I was like, but this is like one person out of all of the people that I sent this email to. It's really not that bad.
Exactly. Yeah. It's funny, and I've heard other people go through similar things. I think it's true, you know, it can be hard when you're starting out.
Yeah. And so I actually read your post about when you were rebranding, and I thought it was interesting because a lot of people think of branding now as like the visual side of things, so your colors, your fonts, the way your website's laid out, and you approached it from like a copy standpoint, from what you were putting out there. So I wanted to know, like, how did you sort of go about that and figure that out?
Yeah, I think what was happening for me is I was getting a little, just feeling stuck and not fully in alignment with the content I was putting out before. I was talking very generally. Before my rebrand, I was really talking to kind of aspiring writers and bloggers and helping them get through creative blocks, helping them get through you know, just the challenges of the writing process in general, and helping really people feel more empowered and inspired when it came to putting their work out there, which was great. And I still kind of do that, but where I was feeling stuck was, do I write for bloggers? Do I write for aspiring writers who just want to write books? You know, my audience I was unclear a little bit of who I was creating for. And the more I did it, the more I just did the work, the clearer I got about how much I just loved hanging out with creative entrepreneurs. And, you know, so the content started shifting a little bit. So that's really where the idea for the rebrand in general came from. But I believe that at the core of our online presence is our message. And that's where the copy part of it comes in. So at the core of the message, that's the content we're putting out there. And that's when I readjusted all the copy on my site. That's when I readjusted, you know, the taglines and who I was writing for just in general. So I think that copy in our writing has to be at the core of rebrands in a lot of ways. And the visuals come with that. So I changed the whole look of my site as well. But when I got clearer on my message and I got clearer on my branding, then, and kind of the energy behind the visual branding, then the site design fell into place. So before I had a ton of color on my site, I had, you know, there was a visual logo, which really fit before. And my whole message now is about really focusing and sinking down into the words and empowering people with their words. So then the site became a more modern, a little bit more simple. The words became more of the focus. So I had to get the messaging and the branding and the copy down first to know what I wanted with the visual. So that's how I approached it.
Yeah, I love that, because when I work with like design clients, they want me to do the visual stuff, but you really have to get them to say, you know, who is your audience? What is your message? Because that's going to affect what you put out there. You know, you can't just pick some colors and some fonts and put it up if you don't know what you're trying to say or who you're trying to talk to. So I think it's super important to know all of that before you try to do the visual branding section.
Yeah, exactly. And I, you know, anyone who I talk to who kind of will ask about the rebranding process or just who they want to be in the online space, I really encourage them to write first and design second. I think it's very exciting and alluring to jump into the design place. But yeah, you have to narrow down what you want your design to be saying to people. And I think behind that, and to figure that out, you have to do some of the writing and the copy first.
Yeah. And I also thought it was really interesting that you sort of found your audience through actually working with people and writing with people. Because I know, you know, the big thing right now is you need to know who you're writing for before you put anything out there. And that doesn't always work because you don't always know who those people are.
Right. Exactly. I think you're spot on. Yeah, you don't always know. And I think it's through doing the work that we come into knowing more, and the more we interact with people. So you have to start off somewhere. So I started off with this general idea a couple of years ago, like, oh, I'm going to jump on. I want to start blogging. I'm interested in writing. I'm just going to start. And you know, my audience kind of shifted as I got people interacting with my site. I realized kind of who they were and who was resonating, who wasn't resonating. And then the more I connected with people on social media, I found my audience in that way. It was through doing the work and trying and experimenting that I found it. And I don't even know how many kind of ideal customer avatars I've done or worksheets I've worked through and that kind of stuff. And they look different every time. And I think part of it's, you know, just getting smarter and learning from doing it and putting yourself out there. But then it's also my own kind of confidence and identity shifted throughout this process as well. You know, so when I first started off, I was talking very esoterically and I was, you know, kind of in an academic space because that's where I was coming from. And as I learned to be more myself online and be more confident just being myself and my, you know, bringing my personality forward, then I wrote differently. And I was able to connect with people in a more human way. And it allowed me to connect with people online who I wanted to be good friends with. And those were the creative entrepreneurs. I love them. They're the people I want to be friends with. So I'm like, of course I want to work with them because those are the people I totally dig and I love what they're doing. So it was through really just doing it that I found my people.
Yeah, and I think, you know, a lot of times at least when I try to write, I try to think of just having a conversation with friends. And so it's great that your audience is those people you want to be friends with. I think that's a really great way to approach that is, I want to be friends with these people. I know that I can work with them. And so that's who I'm going to have a conversation with.
Right. And I think it's like a mutual thing. And I think part of finding our people is like who we're inspired by. So like, I love the work that you do, for example. I think it's so beautiful that you're helping people kind of create their online space and doing that in a way that, you know, it's not my strength, but it's your strength. So I get inspired by, you know, the work that you're doing and get ideas from it, you know, that I can, you know, then, you know, I feel inspired by to put into words in a way, you know, so there's something there that I love just the creative energy when we work with people that, one, we want to be friends with, but then we also really love the work they're doing and feel passionate about supporting them, putting their work out there.
Yeah, and I think it's really nice too when, it's easy to get caught up, at least for designers. I know, checking out every other designer's work and then forgetting about all the other different aspects and the different work people are doing. And so I'm working with a copywriter right now, and I love it because she sees everything so differently than I do, but we're able to sort of balance each other and figure out what's going to work best for her site. She's going to make all the copy, and I'm just putting that into a visual sense.
Yeah, gorgeous. Yeah, I love it because it's like, I think the online kind of creative spaces, that is like this beautiful little puzzle or this dance where we can all come in and fit to really help propel a message or propel a service to really support something else. So it's cool. I love that you're working with someone that you can, kind of jive in that way, and that's ideal.
Yeah. And then how do you like approach your writing process when you're writing for yourself or you're writing for somebody else?
Yeah. I think when it comes to both myself and with other people, it's a lot of brainstorming at first and conversation. I love getting to know the person, but I also love getting to know the idea that they're trying to sell and really trying to help them get clear about what it is that they are actually trying to say and the emotion underneath it and kind of the core feelings. Because I really think that people, they're not necessarily buying a product ever. I think people are always buying hope, they're buying connection, they're buying a sense of a better life for themselves. They're never buying the thing. So, it's really helping people get a little bit deeper. And I do that with myself too. I'm like, okay, what am I really trying to say here? What am I trying to say here? And then really kind of drilling down each time when I come up with an idea. And then the work becomes translating that into something concrete. So what I see a lot of people saying online, especially coaches, and I totally love coaches, but a lot of words like you see floating around like juicy or empowered or, and a happier, healthier, hot life. You see these kind of phrases, which are beautiful because the message behind it is people are really trying to help people live better lives or more inspired lives or feel more confident in themselves. But I think the writing process, the work then becomes identifying that, and then, okay, how do we take these big, deep ideas and bring them back down to earth? Because we resonate with detail, we resonate with story, we resonate with concrete images, and that's what helps us take action. So for me, it's kind of this process of brainstorming, getting to know the other person, or when I'm writing for myself, brainstorming and almost journaling ahead of time and saying, well, what am I trying to say? What am I trying to say? What am I trying to say? And then flipping the script on that. Okay, what does that look like? What does that look like in real life? What does confidence look like in real life? What does, having a happier life look like in real life? Give me some images, and playing with that. And then I start writing from that place and try to bringing in those concrete details. And I think personality is a huge piece of it, because I think ultimately branding, whether it's visual or with words, is about our personality. It's who we are and how we're coming to the table. So when I'm working with other people, it's really just trying to nail down their language and helping them see themselves clearer if I'm helping them write. And then for myself, it's trying to always check, okay, can I hear myself saying this in real life? Can I hear myself saying this to a friend? So, there's kind of these, I think writing and all creative work, it's this balance of going inward. Okay, what am I saying? What am I doing? And then going outward. How do I bring this in a way that people can actually resonate with?
Yeah, I think that's great. I think it's so important that what you write has to sound like something you actually say, because when you meet somebody or you talk to them, you want to sound the same. And I wanted to ask you more, because you'd mentioned this, is helping people get their story out there. So, and people struggle with this because a lot of times we're afraid to put out there, either I failed or this didn't work out the way I wanted it to, or I'm coming from this background that's totally not what I'm doing right now. So how do you help people work through that and really figure out how to tell their story and how to get that to relate to their audience?
Yeah. I think it's really helping them talk through their story and really finding kind of the nuggets and those snapshots that people can resonate with. It doesn't always, story, I think, doesn't always have to be this beginning, middle, and ends. Like, we don't always have to show this, you know, go back to when we were in kindergarten, this happened, this happened, this happened. I think we can really nail down the small pieces of our experience that had a big impact or had a transformational experience for us that brought us to where we are today. So, you know, sometimes people get intimidated by kind of how long and how big their story can be and how much of it to share and what to do. So I really like helping people, and even myself, I've gone through this, just really navigating, okay, when I take this big story, let me just take out some snapshots, you know, to really help orient people. But it's also about the story that's in relation to their business too, and related to what it is they're trying to connect with others about. So it doesn't have to be this long story about things that make them feel really vulnerable or uncomfortable. It can be about, I was longing for something more. I was in a place that was really uncomfortable for me in my life, and helping them just find the piece of their story they're comfortable with sharing, while at the same time pushing out of that, you know, comfort zone and stretching a little bit and asking them, okay, what would you want to read? What would be helpful to read if you were, you know, standing on the other side of that screen? So I think there's a psychological piece that we always have to take into consideration when we're putting ourselves online. It's around helping people just feel more confident, helping people realize, okay, this resistance to sharing my story means I'm actually onto something, and it can be powerful for people. And, you know, we know when it's like, oh, I shouldn't go there. That's not exactly what I want to say, because, you know, if this isn't a therapy session or whatever, you know, I see that come up sometimes. But really about helping people get comfortable with just being themselves and knowing that when fear comes up, it's okay. And just trying and experimenting. And the worst that can happen is you switch it around or take it down. I mean, you can always switch and change things, but I encourage people to try it. And most of the time, everyone is, you know, they have an experience of someone saying thank you, or thank you for sharing that. So I think there's a piece of just getting more comfortable and confident. And the more we do it, the more we share ourselves, the easier it gets.
Yeah. And then, you know, you mentioned that you were an introvert. So how do you help other introverts really get out of their heads and get everything online? Because I struggle with this all the time too, because I'm in the same place. But, like, you know, I feel like extroverts, they can just put it all out there and not worry about it. But as an introvert, I'm afraid to put stuff out there. You know, I don't want everybody to know everything. And even working with clients, I'm like, okay, I need to make sure that we're connecting and we're having a conversation, but I don't want to ever overdo it.
Yeah, I think it's really about helping people go at their own pace and go at a pace that's really comfortable for them, while at the same time stretching, of course. But really, it's about taking the time. So, for example, for me, I write one blog post a week, just because it'd be too much right now to do more than that. And it's because it takes me a long time to write. Even though I'm writing every day and I love writing, it takes me a long time, and I know that. And part of it, it's my own writing process, but the other part of that too is about just my own sense of getting comfortable with an idea and getting comfortable with putting it out there. You know, so there's almost some thinking that goes on behind the scenes. So when I put stuff out there as an introvert, it's more of, I need to get comfortable with my idea. I need to get comfortable with putting it out there. It's okay if it takes me a couple of days. You know, I'm going to batch all my social media, and I'm going to do it in kind of one fell swoop. I'm going to, you know, then jump on every day to just connect with people, but I'm going to get the content out there. I'm going to go at a pace that feels comfortable for me. I'm not going to try to be this biggest extrovert in the world, and that's okay. You know, and it's just acknowledging that we all interact with the world a little bit differently. And, you know, I think knowing the systems that work for us, scheduling my social media works for me. You know, giving myself the space to write a blog post so I feel comfortable to put it out there works for me. Not trying to do everything at once and not trying to compare myself to other people is helpful, even though it's hard.
Yeah, the comparison thing is always hard.
Yeah, totally. Exactly. Yeah.
So if somebody were to come and like want to work with a copywriter, how do you approach that? Like, what should they have prepared or expect when they want to work with you?
Yeah, so I think sometimes people, the way I like doing it is making it a really collaborative process and wanting to have I really want to get to know the person I'm working with because I want to use their words. I want to help them feel empowered. I think it's important that they try writing the copy first and try doing it and getting their feet wet a little bit. And then I love coming in and supporting them and like, okay, let's try it this way. What do you think about this? Oh, this part's really powerful, and it becomes more of a collaborative process. There has been times where I've written copy for people from the ground up, but oftentimes I love coming in and supporting them in more of a collaborative way where they'll write the first draft and then I'll come in and make sure it's hitting all the right notes and making sure that, their point's not getting lost somewhere. But it's really about helping them nail down, what it is they're actually trying to say and trying to nail their voice and wanting them to feel like this really feels right and this feels like me. So I think if someone's looking for a copywriter, I would encourage them to ask a lot of questions about what the system's going to look like. Okay, what's the collaboration going to look like? How are you going to nail down that this actually sounds like me? I think just helping them ask questions is important. And then make sure that there's opportunities to look at drafts and make sure that it feels and everyone's on the right track. So, I love helping and letting them do rewrites and, we could just keep going until it feels really spot on.
All right. And then I'm interested to know, do you have any specific tips that you give people for writing those really hard pages? So like the about pages, people really struggle with. And sometimes even sales pages. Do you have like stuff you help encourage people to do or work through on those?
Yeah, I'd say do a big brain dump at first, like get everything out there. When it comes to about pages, I think they're extra tricky because it's about writing about ourselves while not really writing about ourselves. So there's this kind of back and forth piece of it. But what I encourage people to do is write their brand statement. I think it's an easy thing to kind of plug in. So that's really that one sentence. This is what I do. I help people do this because, and whatever it is that you're passionate about. And then I encourage people to really kind of nail down that piece of their story. And this is what I help people do is really help them nail down that piece of their story that resonates with other people, that almost tells the story about their brand, but then also helps propel their message, and it shows that transformation. So what it's really doing on about pages, and even with sales pages too, is helping people get to a place with their story that, okay, I was here, I'm with you, I get where you're at, and now I'm here and I want to take you on that journey. So really almost seeing it as a bridge of, this is where I was, this is where you're at, I understand where you're coming from, I understand your problems and your frustrations, and let's get to the other side. So depending on whatever your product is or whatever the about page is about, it's going to depend what that language will actually look like. But really helping people just kind of go back and forth. It's almost this dance, and I see it on both sales pages and also on about pages, is the back and forth being, this is who I am, this is where I'm at, this is where you're at, I've been there, this is where you're going to be, and this is how I'm going to get there.
Yeah, it's all about that connection. I understand where you're at, and I can get you to where you want to be because I know what that looks like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then we've got a couple of questions to close out, but do you have any other advice or tips that you want to give people about copywriting, about, branding through their words or any of that stuff?
Yeah, I would say the personality piece is huge, and helping people kind of unlearn what we learned in high school and what we learned in college. I mean, all that stuff we need to kind of get out the door. So what I encourage people to do is, it's totally fine to start sentences with and because, you know, it's okay to do that. It's okay to end in you know, your ins and your outs, you know, all the things you can do in a barrel, the prepositions. It's okay to end with all those in sentences. It is okay to, you know, just kind of put yourself out there in the way that you normally talk. So if you, you know, talk more poetically, put yourself out there in that way. If you talk more sarcastic and with a sense of humor, put yourself out in that way and put that into your writing. I think it's fun. I encourage people to do kind of journals of those things that they say with their friends, that, you know, that kind of secret language you have sometime, or that stuff that makes you laugh really hard, or the random TV shows that you watch, or the random books that you like. You know, put that stuff in there, because that's going to resonate with people. You connect. And, you know, just pretending that it's an online conversation rather than a piece of work that you're just putting out there, but rather you're encouraging conversation. So copywriting is always about just helping people take action. And that action might be just moving to the next line on the page. It might be just getting to a place of, I'm going to press, I want to sign up for the newsletter, or I want to watch this video. So how would you encourage someone to do that in real life? If you were sitting next to someone, what would you tell them about your newsletter? What would you tell them about this idea you're writing about in your blog post? And really keeping it more conversational, I think, is something that people can do, and it can be easy. Add more dialogue even into a blog post, you know, add your personality. So that's what I usually, as kind of a quick tip, is just feel comfortable and give yourself permission to put yourself in your work more.
Yeah, I think that's great, you know, because I do this sometimes where I find myself over editing and I turn it into something a lot more formal. And I love the idea of just pretending like I'm sitting there and I'm trying to explain this thing to you, and that's how I'm going to write my blog post about doing that. I'm basically going to be explaining it to a friend who's sitting next to me.
Exactly, yeah. And I think another trick that's helpful too for people is to do audio of whatever they're trying to write or what they're trying to explain. Because sometimes when we talk, it's easier and it feels more conversational than we're actually putting our hands to the keyboard. So I know Google Docs has a great, you could do voice through Google Docs. I have some just kind of apps on, you can do voice memos on your phone. You know, drag and dictate is something that you can use, but if you want to get yourself out there and talking about an idea and make it feel more conversational and more yourself, do it that way.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
And then what would be your advice to people just starting out in like an online business or as a copywriter?
I would say, and it would go for both, is just to start. Your idea is going to change, you know, your message will probably change and evolve. I think online businesses and creative work in general is an evolving process, and it's a creative work all on its own. So I would say just get started. On the practical side of it, I would say start your email list immediately, because those are your people. And as you start interacting with your people online through email, you realize who your tribe is. You get to know them. You get to know who they are and who you're writing for, and then you get to adjust that. Like, okay, cool, is this my people? Am I feeling good about this, or do I want to change it? Or what are the questions they're asking? So I think for people starting out is, one, start doing the work, but then also listen. Listen to the people on your email list, listen to the people on social media, connect. It's all about building community first. And then as you start putting your services out there, you know, it's always going to be a trial. You never know what's going to land. You never know what's going to work. So it's just about having the courage and having fun to just try, launch, see how it lands, move on, adjust, just keep doing it.
Yeah, I think that's so true. Everything is an experiment when you're doing something like this.
Yeah.
I was talking about this with my husband the other day. I was like, you know, I could totally fail at something in my business. And he's like, but it's not really failing. You just tried something and it didn't work. You're not a failure because of that.
Right, exactly. And I think that speaks to where I know I struggled at the beginning. It's like when I felt someone unsubscribed, I felt it was like because of me, not because they weren't just resonating with, you know, the topic or the message at that moment. Like sort of taking that step back that I think we get some perspective on the more we do it and the more we put ourselves out there.
Yeah. So what are your goals for the next 6 months?
Yeah, I'm excited to, I want to do more just video in general. I'm excited about Periscope and how connective that is. I think that's awesome. My goal is to do more webinars. I have a product that I'm launching here pretty soon I'm working on right now, which is all about, it's kind of this, it's a workbook and guide to help creative entrepreneurs just manage all of the writing they have to do for their business. So it's not just the copy, but it's kind of creating a game plan and an action plan around their copy, around their blog posts, around social media, all the writing everyone has to be doing. It's a ton. And I'm really passionate about helping creative entrepreneurs start thinking themselves as writers. So oftentimes they think of themselves as, you know, designers or, you know, people who are brand specialists or, you know, whatever it is. But really helping them think of themselves as writers too, because it goes hand in hand. So that's something I'm really excited to do more about and make some cool products around it. I'm also going to be working on something specifically about pages, because I think about pages are really hard for people. So I'm going to do a DIY kind of workbook around about pages to help people guide people through the about page process.
That's awesome. And then I was going to ask you what you're working on right now, but you sort of touched on that a little bit. Do you have anything else you wanted to share?
So there's that. And then the other thing I'm adding more into, so I'm going to have the products, but then I'm going to start really diving in and doing some workshops with people to work on their about pages and kind of really dive in and do some collaborative stuff through like Google Docs where we can both be playing with the document at the same time. And doing more kind of hands-on services. So I'm going to be doing that as well going forward.
All right, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
So thanks so much for joining me. I'm really excited about getting into this copy stuff because that's not what I'm good at. So I love being able to hear from somebody who's so passionate about it and, you know, really wants to help people learn all of that.
Yeah. No, I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to learn from you too. I think your stuff is so awesome, and what you're doing for people is so awesome. And you know, it's not my strong suit, so I love hearing and learning from you as well, and learning from your guests, you know, who you're having on this series. I'm really excited about all of them.
Awesome, thanks. Anything else before we go?
I would just encourage anyone watching. I mean, if you have an idea, just rock and roll with it. Go for it. You totally can do this. It's going to be its own creative process, starting your own biz, and you know, just kind of roll with it, learn from people, connect, keep writing, think of yourself as a writer, own that, and you know, there's so many people to help, so yeah, keep going.
All right. Thanks for joining me, and have a great night.
You too. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Bye.